Back in 2013, DC started their cinematic universe with Man of Steel and ended it with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom in 2023. After 15 movies in 10 years, the DCEU is officially over. And now we wait to see what the new DCU, not the DCEU, that's two different things, what the new DCU has in store for us. So, in this little series, I will be rating and ranking all 15 movies in 15 episodes, and a 16th episode will be the one where I rank them. I will be talking about them in release order, and I won't be mentioning any controversies that happened during the 10-year time. Controversies like Ray Fisher and Joss Whedon, or why the man who was in charge had to step away from his own projects. I want these videos to be about the movies themselves. However, I will mention some developments behind the scenes if context is required to explain why movies turned out the way they did. So to set the scene, let's look at what happened back in 2012. Ubisoft published the fourth installment in the Assassin's Creed franchise titled Assassin's Creed 3, the first game that was made after the successful and well received Ezio trilogy, and the main character being a Native American. We love the representation in this household. Messi won the Ballon d'Or, his fourth in a row, after scoring 91 goals in a football calendar year. The most goals a footballer has ever scored in a calendar year. Chelsea won the Champions League for the first time in their history, and I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, Far Cry 3 and Halo 4 were released. Jokes aside, 2012 was the year The Avengers was released, marking the end of Marvel's first phase of movies. The Avengers was the first Marvel movie to bring in $1 billion in the box office, the most successful comic book movie ever at the time. It had the best opening weekend for any film that year, including in IMAX theaters, and it was the fastest movie to ever reach 100 million in the box office, and it's tied actually for the fastest movie to reach $1 billion with Avatar. You must understand, this movie wasn't just a big win for Marvel. It was the big win for Marvel. It was the big win that Marvel needed. Other studios saw Marvel's big success at creating a connected cinematic universe and thought, you know what? We could try that too. So, from 2012 and beyond, we got a lot of studios announcing and creating their own cinematic universes in an attempt to get some of the success that Marvel got. Over the years, we'd get announcements like the Monsterverse, the Dark Universe, the Sony Spider Man universe that didn't actually have Spider Man, which is a whole other video to cover. And there's one more I'm forgetting. Oh yeah, the Five Nights at Freddy's series that started in 2023. But in comes Zack Snyder, who back in 2008 said a lot of things about how he didn't get into comics because there weren't any explicit scenes in them. Or when he didn't think that Christopher Nolan's Batman is dark because he doesn't get um, I'm just gonna put it on screen. I'm just disgusted to even say this out loud. But DC announced their first movie was going to be a Superman movie titled Man of Steel, the beginning of their new cinematic universe. Put an asterisk on that because there were original plans behind the scenes that had to change. But we'll get to that later on. So you might be asking yourselves, why did I mention DC in the same bracket as the other companies that announced their shared universes in 2012 when DC announced their own cinematic universe back in 2010? That's because DC's cinematic universe didn't start in 2010, it started in 2013, hence, after the movie Avengers. So that's how I'm counting it, basically. Man of Steel is a darker take on the man that represents hope, following the previous success of the Dark Knight trilogy. Why did I mention the Dark Knight trilogy being an important factor to Man of Steel's creation? It's because DC brought Christopher Nolan as a consultant for the production of this movie, because the original plan was to have Man of Steel be a part of the Dark Knight trilogy. Of course, now we know that's not the case anymore, because the DCEU would get a new Batman. But that topic's for a different video, and or technically the next movie review, since the next movie review is on Batman v Superman. But that's not the topic of this video. This topic is Man of Steel. The movie was released and it got a lot of mixed reviews, evidenced by the 7.2 out of 10 on IMDb and the 57% on Rotten Tomatoes. A decent amount of people liked the movie. A lot of people, including myself, didn't like it very much. But I won't talk on behalf of those people. I'll only talk about my opinions and my thoughts about this. What do I think of this movie? Well, to me, he doesn't really feel like the hopeful Superman that Superman is supposed to be. You know, the one that saves people from the good of his heart and does the right thing simply because it's right. I'm not sure if it was intentional, but we never actually see Superman save anyone in Man of Steel. The only person I remember he saved was Lois Lane at the beginning of the movie when he closed off her wound using his heat vision. He did also save those people from the oil rig, but that shot of the movie was more focused on his abs rather than Superman actually saving people. So, in my personal opinion, it doesn't really count. I'll get to the negatives later on. I want to get to the positives of this movie out of the way first, because in my opinion, there's not that many. A few good things about this movie. Um, where do I start? Lois Lane. Let's start with Lois Lane. Lois Lane actually being an investigative reporter is a good thing about this movie. She was able to track down Superman and find out his secret identity all on her own. The soundtrack with Hans Zimmer is genuinely incredible. Arcade is one of my favorite soundtracks in this movie, and I listen to it a lot whenever I'm drawing people like Homelander. I'm not even kidding. Showing us young Clark Kent discovering his powers and representing how a young boy that suddenly develops powers would behave was well executed. That scene was absolutely beautiful. The flight scene where Superman finally puts on the suit and starts to fly, that is the most Superman coded scene I've ever seen in that movie. The music, the lighting, Superman actually smiling and laughing is pure cinema. This is the embodiment of Superman. Another positive, Henry Cavill, that also goes in hand with the scene that I talked about right now. Henry Cavill, in my opinion, could have been a great Superman. He certainly looks like a Clark Kent and Superman. And in this scene specifically, he does do a convincing Superman. Superman killing Zod in of itself is a bad thing, but I'm writing this as a positive is because of the context. In the final scene of the final battle in the movie, Zod was about to laser through a family, so Superman had no choice but to kill General Zod. This would have been a negative if Superman showed any indifference, but no, Superman was pretty distraught. He was pretty upset that he had to kill Zod, and that is pretty in character for someone that values all life. And then it's on to the negatives. Yeah, folks, we're already done with the positives of this movie, or at least the positives that I noticed in this movie. There could be other positives in the movie that I did not notice, or maybe required more context. You're welcome to talk to me in the comments section about this movie. I will definitely read through and reply to as many as I can. So let's get into this. Let's get into the negatives. After Clark Kent saves a bus full of his classmates from drowning, Jonathan Kent basically tells him that he maybe should have left the children in the school bus drown. Superman takes General Zod into a populated area, causing more casualties than an accurately represented Superman would actually allow. It wasn't out of Superman's control either. He literally took General Zod off guard and took him to a factory, and it blew up, and then he took him into the town and he blew a bunch of stuff up and broke a bunch of stuff. This wasn't out of Superman's control either. He could have easily taken Zod into the nearby fields, which was seen in the movie. It's literally right there. He even acknowledges this. He even says to the civilians to get inside, it's not safe, and proceeds to make no effort to take the battle away from the civilians. Final two battles are examples of how Superman was character assassinated in this movie. He could have destroyed General Zod's ship in the same way he destroyed the World Engine, but he decided to make a black hole in the middle of a densely populated city. The movie makes a point that Superman is struggling to fight away from the black hole, which implies that even more people who are definitely 100,000% are not as strong as Superman got sucked into the black hole that Superman caused. This is the same person who's based off the comic book character that values all life and tries to save as many lives as he can no matter what. He doesn't even look like he cares right after. The movie doesn't even take a moment for Superman to acknowledge all that he's done. This movie has enough time for Lois Lane and Superman to kiss in the middle of the city that he destroyed, and they're just literally making out on top of corpses. Zod isn't defeated yet. He pops up later to begin the final battle of the movie. This is insane. I can't believe I can't believe this actually happened in the movie. Zod and Superman destroy more buildings. Zod tosses a highly explosive truck towards Superman, and Superman just jumps out of the way instead of, I don't know, maybe stopping it to prevent more casualties. The truck crashes into the building behind him and explodes, which makes him turn his back to Zod because he's surprised that the highly explosive truck that he made no effort to stop from exploding actually exploded when it got tossed in a high velocity and suddenly stopped when it crashed into the building. Superman continues to make no effort to either acknowledge what he's done or take the fight away from the highly populated city, which emphasizes my point that I think this version of Superman really doesn't care about saving people. Superman finally takes Zod away from civilians after Zod learned how to fly, which this could have been avoided if Superman just took him to the giant field of no civilians. You know what? To give him some grace, he did actually try to take Zod away from the densely populated area after Zod learned how to fly. It didn't work, but at least he tried. Okay, I'm gonna admit that. At least he tried. I just need to highlight this. This is the only time that Superman made an actual effort to save people from Zod's attack in this entire movie. And that, everyone, are my thoughts on Man of Steel. I rated it a 2 out of 5 on Letterboxd, and feel like it should have been less, but at the same time, it's nowhere near as Shazam Fury of the Gods or Black Adam. So maybe 2 out of 5 is more accurate when it compared to those ratings. So do you agree with my thoughts? Do you not? If you didn't, let me know what you didn't like, what you didn't agree with me, and if I missed any other points of this movie, let me know in the comments. And if even if you didn't like this movie, just say meh, I don't like this movie. The next movie review will be on Batman v Superman, so subscribe to see it as soon as it gets out. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, that will be all for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.